everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm continuing to work on my cottagecore flower festival island called Sycamore and make a pretty garden for Gala, along with filling in the area behind Gala's house with a flower field. I loved how both of these little areas turned out, so I thought I would share the builds with you so that you can use them as inspiration for your own cottagecore islands. The original idea for Gala's house was to make her some sort of custodian of flowers. After all, she is decorated with flowers, so I wanted her house to be a cozy representation of that so that she fits into the broader look I've got for this island. Her yard is designed to be more of a cozy cottage on this island, so I've included a small flower garden here, but added in elements of a working cottage with a potting shed and some extra items to fill in the space. Being completely honest, whilst I was working on this build, I was very conscious about how much I still had to do on my island, but when I was done with working on both these little builds, I took a look around and realised that I was actually closer to finishing this island than I had originally thought. This was the last major corner of my island which needed finishing off, and once I had the flower field down, I realised I'm so much closer to finishing the island than I thought. It's funny how these things work out, and I'm honestly so pleased to actually be this close to now having a finished island. There's still some bits and pieces left to work on for this island, but I'm really excited to be closing in on a new island, and I've been really thinking about what my next theme is going to be. If you want to know more about what my next theme is going to be, you should consider subscribing so that you get all of the information when that is available. During the process of building out this part of my island, I was trying to think of anything I could add in which makes me think of the British countryside, purely because I was starting to run out of ideas on big builds. Other than Gala's garden, there was a really big space behind the house which I didn't really know what to do with. Other than possibly putting in another big build, I was trying to think of something which could connect both the south part and the centre parts of my islands together. Fortunately, around the time I was working on this build for Gala's house, I'd seen a couple of inspirational images from other island designers where they'd made flower fields, and I realised this was something I could easily add into Sycamore. After all, Gala is the best flower girl, so she could easily have a source of extra flowers for her little business nearby. I was also reminded of my mood board where I'd put this image of the scene from the animated Beauty and the Beast movie where Belle runs down and through the meadow with the hills in the background, and that was something I really wanted to create on this island. So a flower field seemed like a really good idea to just tie into the overall vibes of the island. This way I could fill in the area and make a larger build to fill the space, but still keep it open and easy to navigate through. You never know where inspiration is going to strike you when it comes to whatever island you're working on. Normally when you're working on an island, you do hit a natural stopping point where you can't think of what to put in to fill a space on your island. We all have these big build ideas, but it's these small and mid-sized areas which you don't think about until you're stuck into a larger build, and then you suddenly realise there's not one good idea which can work in that space. It can take a really long time to think of what to put in a space like this, and it can lead you to leaving your switch altogether whilst you think about what you want to do with it. If you ever do find yourself in that position, it's always worth taking a look at what other people are doing for their islands. It doesn't mean that you have to directly copy what someone else is working on, but even if you just need an idea to work with, you can take a rough build that someone worked on for their island and use it to direct you with what you're working on for your own themes. So here you can see that I've moved on from finishing Gala's house, and now I'm working on the flower field, and you can see how big this area really is. When it came to this flower field and how I was going to make it, I knew that I wanted there to be walkways up to the farm leading into the middle of my island and out towards the beaches. But I didn't want to make something which was too rigid in having fully diagonal paths or completely straight paths. So I played around with a pathing tool to try and make some paths which would be windy but not too big. My fear with doing something like this is going too custom code heavy and not having the space to make the actual build I wanted. So I started by just laying the main path down from Gala's house to the beach, as this is largely going to be the main travel route, and it also gave me something rough to work with rather than looking at a large open area and not having a clue where to go from there. Sometimes just laying something down is better than not doing anything in Animal Crossing, as that decision paralysis can really stop you from making progress. From there I added in some trees because I didn't want my flower field to be completely flat. If it were, it would look odd against the farm, which is right behind this field. So just having a few trees in there helped me plan out roughly where everything else was going to go for the build. I won't lie about this. It was really challenging doing this flower field because it's such an odd shape and the location is a little bit weird. It's almost fully in line with the wheat field I have above the build and the museum below that, so I was worried that it was going to look too monotonous. But I was also trying to contend with a build that I didn't have a preconceived idea of what I wanted it to look like. All I knew was that I didn't want it to look structured, as most things in the countryside are more fluid and irregular in shape and styles. So when I was working with an area which was completely flat and square, it was a bit of a challenge to work out where the path should go. So I took a break from placing trees to just try and add in some more pathways, as otherwise I was going to end up with large spaces of flowers and no defined walkways, which wasn't what I was going for. Having a more broken and scattered path system really helped me with working out what space was left for decorating and how I want you guys to wander around the dream address. When I put down a load of broken walkways in, I then went back and worked on placing trees and starting the process of placing the flowers, because you can't have a flower field without flowers. I have a pink, yellow, orange and white colour scheme for this island, so I wanted to make sure that I included all of the different colours and flowers that I've used on this island, but I also intermingled some more bushes and weeds into this area to give it a more natural look. The point of this flower field is that the flowers, bushes and trees are going to do the talking for this build. I didn't want a huge amount of items in here because it's supposed to be a transition build, but it's also its own standout build. The items I did use here feed back into the cozy cottagecore vibes that I've gone for on this island. There's a lot of wheat fields, for example, and I've used green leaf piles to break up the walkway, but I really surprised myself by not using as many festival garlands as I have elsewhere on this island. But then the idea of this island is that it's a flower festival, so I guess I don't need the garlands if I'm shoving in a ton of flowers instead. What is scary is that this is the last major build I have on Sycamore. This corner was really daunting for me because of not knowing what to place here, but once I'd finished working on this area, I felt so good about the progress I made on this island. It's that way sometimes. You end up looking at your island and getting annoyed with yourself and not doing as much on your island as you want. But when that creative itch strikes, you can just soldier through a bunch of builds really quickly, and now this corner of the island is basically done. I feel so good about this island, and I kind of think this may be my favourite island that I've ever done. Motivation can be something that is really challenging to find in Animal Crossing because you get really excited about a new island, new codes, new villagers, new theme. Everything is just new and sparkly and amazing. Then you start working on the first few builds and you love the idea of everything that you're doing, but somewhere around the middle of working on the island, that motivation just dies. That's the moment where burnout can strike, and it seems like it's going to be forever before you finish your island and move on to the next. It's sometimes even tempting to just race through and finish the island as soon as possible so that you get back to the new and shiny island again with all of the hope and possibility, or to completely reset and start all over again. The biggest thing that I've learned from all of those moments is that just persevering with an island and trying it is the best thing you can do for you and your island. Not every theme is for every person, but I do think there is a culture of just giving up on islands before you may have really tried the theme. But the other side of it is in picking a theme which you feel personally drawn to, and not doing this is probably the biggest reason why people give up on islands. Researching builds and really thinking through a theme that is going to work for you before you commit to an island is so important, because if you don't resonate with a theme, there is a strong possibility that you will give up on it before you get halfway through. For this island, as I've mentioned before, it was my former hardish mode island, and I knew that I wanted to finish it and not lose it to the ether for the sakes of starting a new island. Originally the plan was to turn it into a forest island, but the longer I thought about it, the more I didn't resonate with a forest and natural theme. I really wanted to try cottagecore as I haven't done that one yet, so I decided to give it a go on Sycamore and just keep the name. But even though I'd settled on cottagecore, I knew I would get stuck if I didn't know what bit within cottagecore I wanted to work on. That's where I came back to the ideas of big, sweeping, open meadows, lots of natural spaces, and thought of sticking with the British countryside. That narrowing down of what you're going to be working on can be a massive help for what you want your next island to look like. So if you know roughly what style of island you're looking to make, it's worth narrowing down what you want your island to look like within that style until you have something which you like and can work for you. List some builds, think about your villagers, what colours you want to use on your island, and when you get to the point where you know exactly what you're working towards, it should be possible for you to finish an island without too many issues. You may still experience the burnout phase, particularly in cases where I've been, where you're closing in on finishing an island, but there's just that tiny bit left to go. But that phase won't be nearly as bad if you work on setting a good foundation of what you want your island to look like and then go from there. Here you can see me working on the bottom half of this field. It was really close to the back of the terraforming for my museum, so this area was not going to be something you will easily see, and it didn't need a ton of things to fill in here, but you'll still be able to see a lot of this area from the walkway, and I wanted to have some decorations down here to fill in that space. I had this brick wall in my storage, and I just thought it would be super cute in this build, so I ended up putting it in along with a barrel and a garden wagon, but that was really it for furniture items here. Again, the flowers and natural items are the important parts, so that was the priority for this build. I think I chose some really good items to include in this part of the island to fill in this extra space and make something which is really cute and cuddly and fits into the perfect vibes that I have for the overall theme of this island. I'm absolutely obsessed with how this island is turning out. It makes me feel so cozy and at home, which is perfect for what I wanted for this island. If you want to see another build on this island which makes me feel all the feels, you should check out my campsite area, which is one of the coziest things I made on this island. And I'll see you over there.